It happened that I asked about the summer vacation in Hawaii, the one I had paid $22,000 for. The whole family was supposed to go. My parents, my younger brother Noah, my sister Olivia, and me. When I called my mother that afternoon, her voice was unusually cheerful, like the sound of clinking glasses over an ocean breeze. I asked casually, "So, when are we leaving for Hawaii?" There was a pause, a long one, then she said, "Oh, Autumn. We already went last week. Only for family." First I laughed, thought she was joking, but then I heard the faint crash of waves behind her voice. The sound of a seagull. Someone, maybe Noah, shouted, "Mom, come back to the beach." And that was when I knew. They had gone without me. Hey everyone, I'm Autumn, I'm 33 years old, and this is my story. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe because what happened next changed everything about how I saw family, love, and betrayal. Now, let's go back to the day I realized my entire family had cut me out of the trip I paid for. When I hung up, I sat there staring at the receipt on my screen, the travel confirmation email with all their names listed. I'd booked 5 tickets. I'd planned everything down to the last detail. The beachfront villa, the spa reservations, even the snorkeling lessons my dad had always wanted. Paid for everything. And yet, I wasn't invited. I remember sitting on the edge of my bed, the hum of the air conditioner the only sound in my apartment. My hands were shaking as I replayed my mother's words. Only for family. What did that even mean? Wasn't I family? The bitterness didn't hit me immediately. It came later in quiet waves. But the confusion, that arrived instantly. When they returned a week later, I tried to act normal. I called my mom again, pretending not to know. She went on and on about the luau, the waterfall hikes, how Noah learned to surf. She didn't even sound guilty. Not one hint of shame. Then, a month later, I got the text from Dad. "The rent is overdue again, Autumn. Did you send the money yet?" And that was when something in me snapped. I stared at the message for a full minute before replying. "Only for family. Remember." I hit send. And that was the moment everything changed. They had always seen me as the responsible one, the one who would bail everyone out. Growing up, my parents called me the second mom. When Noah got arrested for fighting in college, I paid his lawyer fees. When Olivia wanted to start her boutique, I loaned her the startup money. And when my parents wanted to remodel their kitchen, I helped pay for that too. It wasn't about the money. It was about loyalty, family. But the Hawaii trip, that broke something sacred. I didn't hear from them for 2 weeks after my reply. Silence. Then one night, around midnight, my mother called, her voice trembling. "Autumn, your father and I are worried. Why would you say something like that? You know we count on you." "Count on me?" I interrupted. "You mean use me?" She went quiet. I could hear her breathing. I imagined her sitting in the dimly lit kitchen, that same old wall clock ticking behind her. "Sweetheart," she said, "you're overreacting. We didn't think you'd want to come." "Didn't think." Snap. "Mom, I paid for the whole damn trip." She sighed like I was the one making things complicated. "It was supposed to be family time, Autumn. You're always so busy with work. We wanted to relax without pressure." Without me, she meant. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, my phone still in my hand. My whole life I had done everything right. I worked 2 jobs through college, started my own business, helped my family whenever they needed me. And still, they treated me like an outsider. So I decided, if they wanted to know what being family really meant, I'd show them. Not with anger, not with yelling or crying, but with patience, with silence, and with something far more dangerous, planning. The next morning I woke up with that strange stillness in my chest. Not sadness, not rage, just an eerie kind of calm. The kind that comes when your heart has finally stopped pleading to be understood. I opened my laptop, pulled up my banking app, and began moving money. Slowly. Deliberately. For years, I'd been the one handling most of the family's finances. Setting up accounts, paying bills, transferring funds when someone's card accidentally got declined. I'd been stupidly generous, too trusting. But I wasn't stupid anymore. I started by canceling the auto payment on my parents' rent, the one I'd been covering since they retired early. Then I pulled back the silent loan I'd given Olivia for her boutique. She'd never bothered to pay back a cent, despite all her promises. When I was done, I sat back and stared at the screen. My heart was pounding, but it wasn't fear, it was relief. For the first time in years, I was no longer their safety net. A week passed before they noticed. My father called first, his voice tight with irritation. "Autumn, the landlord's been calling. You didn't send the rent." "No," I said evenly. "I didn't." "Why not?" "Because it's only for family, remember?" The silence that followed was almost sweet. I could practically feel him realizing I wasn't bluffing. "You can't be serious," he said finally. "After everything we've done for you." I laughed, sharp and humorless. "Done for me? You mean the Hawaii trip? The one you took with my money?" "Don't be petty," he snapped. "We thought you'd understand." "Oh, I understand," I said softly. "More than you think." I ended the call before he could respond. The next domino to fall was Olivia. She showed up at my apartment a few days later, all perfume and dramatics, banging on my door like the world owed her an explanation. "Autumn, what is wrong with you?" she cried the moment I opened the door. "You froze the business account. I can't pay my staff." "You mean my money?" I asked calmly. "The one you said you'd return after your boutique took off?" She rolled her eyes. "God, you're so controlling. No wonder no one wants to be around you." Her words stung, but I didn't flinch. "Then you'll manage without me." I closed the door before she could answer. Her muffled curses faded down the hallway, leaving me alone again, but lighter. By the end of that month, they had all stopped talking to me. No calls, no text. The family group chat went quiet. For a while it hurt. I'd catch myself scrolling through old photos, birthdays, holidays, the little moments that used to mean something. But every image felt like a lie now. The smiles, the hugs, the "we're in this together." All of it had been built on what I could give, not who I was. So I stopped looking back. Instead, I focused on building something new for myself. I took a solo trip to the coast, the one place I'd never shared with anyone. I rented a small cabin, watched the sunrise every morning, and realized that peace isn't something you buy for others. It's something you claim for yourself. But peace doesn't last long when you're dealing with people who think they own you. 2 months later, Noah called out of the blue. His voice was nervous, hesitant. "Hey sis," he began. "Look, I know things are weird right now, but Mom and Dad might lose the house. They said you'd help." I almost laughed. "The house I helped buy." He hesitated. "Well, yeah, but they said a lot of things," I cut in. "Like how Hawaii was only for family." He went quiet. Then, in a smaller voice, "They didn't mean it like that. They didn't mean it like that." "Yes, they did," I said. "And that's fine. But choices have consequences, Noah." He sighed. "You've changed." "No," I whispered. "I just stopped pretending." When I hung up, I sat there for a long while, the late sunlight stretching across my living room floor. I felt something shift inside me. Not triumph, not guilt, but clarity. They'd built their comfort on my sacrifice, and now they were learning how fragile that comfort really was. But the thing about revenge is never clean. It doesn't end when you want it to. Because when they came back, when my parents finally showed up at my door, desperate and hollow-eyed, the real story began. They came on a rainless evening, when the sky was the exact dull gray of something about to break. I heard the knock before I saw them. 3 hesitant, small raps that sounded like someone testing whether forgiveness might still open the door. I wiped my hands on a towel, smoothed my hair, and let them stand there. Let them feel the weight of that silence for once. My mother's face was thinner than I remembered. Her eyes red-rimmed and raw. My father looked smaller, not because he had lost height, but because the swagger that had always filled the room with him was hollowed. Noah trailed behind them like someone trying not to meet my eyes. "Autumn," my mother began, voice wobbling. "You could have called," I said. The words were flatter than I expected. You could have said you were sorry. My father shuffled from one foot to the other. You thought I'd understand. Finished. You thought I'd accept being used as a credit card and a mattress and a quiet place to dump your guilt? My mother's shoulders trembled. We never meant to hurt you. No, I said softly. You meant to be comfortable. They flinched like I had slapped them. My stomach tightened. I'd rehearsed so many endings, but this moment felt rawer than any rehearsal. The plan I'd built, the one that had quietly taken their comforts apart until they had to feel the cold, had never been about watching them suffer. It had been about forcing them to look at what they'd become. My father swallowed. Please, Autumn. We can pay you back. We'll. No, I said. You won't. That's the point. Noah stepped forward, guilt written loud on his face. Sis, please. Moms, dads, they can't lose the house. Can fix things. I'll work extra. Fix things. I repeated. By taking advantage of me again. My mother began to cry then, soft at first and then full-voiced, the kind that opens the gates to memory. We raised you. We worked so hard. We didn't know how to say no. That's convenient, I said. You didn't know how to say no when it came to Hawaii and your vanity projects. But you knew how to sign the checks when I needed help. You knew exactly when to ask. They looked at one another, ashamed. For a heartbeat, the entire family looked smaller than the room. Then my father did something I did not expect. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small, worn envelope. We found this at the bottom of a drawer, he said. It's for you. We thought. My fingers closed around it automatically. Inside was a crumpled photo of us when we were kids, sunburned and laughing on a cheap motel beach towel. On the back, in my mother's shaky handwriting, a note. You deserve better, Autumn. Don't ever forget that. It hurt in a new way, like being cut and then handed the mirror. I held the picture and felt the rage and the aching both. Why now? Yes. Why did you have to risk losing everything before you could find that note? My father said nothing. Noah's face crumpled. My mother's tears were relentless. The room became a theater of regret. I could have let them in after that. I could have reopened my accounts, restarted their auto payments, pretended the ocean of lies had been a bad dream. But something inside me had shifted irrevocably. The calm I'd felt at the beginning of all this wasn't cruelty. It was a boundary finally written in hard ink. Here's what's going to happen, I said. I will help you, but not like before. Their hope made them lean in. My voice hardened into something both merciful and precise. You will acknowledge on camera what you did. You will apologize publicly. You will return the money for the house repairs and the boutique. Legally, with a written contract. You will go to counseling. And you will let me live my life without expecting rescue. My father's jaw worked. Publicly, he said. On camera. Yes. I felt the petty thrill of it and hated myself for it, but I didn't stop. You'll tell people that you used me. That you chose comfort over your daughter. You'll take responsibility. My mother's sobs faltered into something like comprehension. We'll do it, she whispered. We'll do whatever it takes. Over the next weeks, I watched them do the work. The apologies were awkward and raw, and seeing them fumble through truth was its own satire. They recorded a video. Not a viral crusade, but a small, sincere confession that I uploaded to the private family channel I'd started months earlier. I refused to make it public. This wasn't about spectacle. It was about boundaries, restitution, and finality. When the signed promissory notes were in place and therapy had started, I sat by myself on my little balcony at dawn and watched the sun lift the city's roofs into gold. The house they nearly lost remained theirs for now. Olivia repaid a portion of her loan, and Noah put in real hours at the mechanic shop he'd always loved. My parents took step after halting step toward repair. It didn't feel like a victory or a loss. Felt like a clearing. For the first time in my life, the definition of family wasn't what they called me when they needed something. It was the mutual work of showing up, with honesty, with restraint, with respect. A month later my mother called me, This time without the clattering bravado, without rehearsed excuses. "Autumn," she said, voice small. "Thank you for making us see." I smiled, and for the first time in a long while, it wasn't jagged. "Just don't make me regret it," I told her. She laughed, a wet, relieved sound. "We won't." As I closed the phone, the apartment felt like a body that had finally learned how to breathe again. Revenge had been the spark, swift, hot, necessary. But it was not the ending. The ending was quieter. A woman reclaiming herself, a family learning the cost of convenience, and the small, stubborn persistence of dignity. I poured myself a cup of coffee, watched the steam curl into morning, and thought of that beach photo, of childhood summers and promises written in ballpoint ink. I tucked it into my journal, closed the cover, and walked out into a life I would no longer fund at the cost of my soul. If you liked Autumn's story and want the behind-the-scenes details, the exact steps she took to protect herself legally and emotionally, fictionalized for storytelling, hit subscribe and I'll post an in-depth breakdown next week.